Views expressed by CamaPlan podcast guests may not reflect those of CamaPlan. CamaPlan does not guarantee the accuracy of information provided by guests, nor does it endorse or recommend any individual or organization. CamaPlan is not an investment advisor, CPA, realtor, or attorney. You are encouraged to conduct your own due diligence before making investment choices. For any tax, legal, accounting, investment, or other questions, please consult a specialist. Welcome back to the road to financial freedom, where experts share stories and secrets to unlocking financial independence. This podcast is brought to you by CamaPlan, a self-directed IRA administrator focused on educating investors on how to grow retirement savings faster through alternative investments. I'm Ricky Trong, CamaPlan team member and podcast host. In each episode, we're going to take an in-depth look at the many roads taken to financial freedom and how they differ for each of our guests. Today's guest started as a real estate entrepreneur who sells, leads, and invests. He's a best-selling author who has purchased 40 rental properties before turning the age of 40 and has a passion for trying to change lives through real estate. Now, let's hear more directly from the source about his journey. Let's welcome Luke Andrews to the show. Hey, Luke, how are you today? I'm so excited that we're finally getting to record here, and I'm excited for you to share your knowledge with our audience. How are you?
I am doing great, Ricky. How about yourself?
I am doing great. I'm super pumped. It's early, but my coffee kicked in and I am excited to talk with you today. So I know that you are a best-selling author, which is super cool. I mean, under 40 rentals. I know you hit your goal. I believe we talked about that last time, right? You hit that goal of 40 under 40, like right before your 40th birthday, correct?
I did. So, as we record this, we closed on our 40th investment property probably 2.5 months ago, and I turned 40 in about 2 weeks. So it just kind of weeked in under the wire.
Happy almost birthday. And that is amazing. What a goal to hit. So why don't we just, kick it off right here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, what you do, and where you're at today and where your future may hold you.
Sure. So for me, I actually started in the corporate world. I did some corporate sales from an insurance, and I moved into a leadership role. I moved into strategic marketing and data analytics, which is just kind of like this. It was an odd role for me, but it all kind of fit because I had some background in the pharmaceutical industry. And so I started doing marketing for a large pharmacy. And so I ran a large marketing campaign, and I had someone there that I worked with who was he started talking about real estate investing. It was something that I was somewhat interested in. And so we would just, we'd have lunch together, we'd go for walks, we'd do stuff where we're just like, let's try to buy an investment property together. Right. Let's just kind of pool our money because neither of us were really in a spot where we had enough extra money to go buy something. And we were looking, there was this up and coming area of town, and this was probably 8 or 9 years ago. And there were a few deals out there, if you really searched, where you could find a property that needed some work, that wasn't quite ready to have somebody move in, but wasn't, a complete tear down and restart, that we could buy for about $20,000. And so we were looking and like, okay, we'll pull our money together. We'll spend $20,000 in cash. We'll buy this property. We'll fix it up ourselves. And then, we'll do the BRRRR method, buy, rehab, refinance, rent, and repeat. And so we were on that plan. We were looking for that property that we could go out and we could pay cash for. In a serendipitous move, this guy is having dinner at his girlfriend's parents' house. They have a friend over and obviously asking like, oh, what do you do? And he's telling him what he does. And he's like, but we're passionate about real estate investing. We're looking for some properties. And they said, well, interestingly enough, we own a lot of properties and we're looking to retire and sell our portfolio. So we went from trying to buy one property for $20,000 in cash to 13 falling in our lap. Now, we didn't know anything about what we needed to, right? We didn't know, first of all, how to get the money for 13 properties. We knew it was a good deal, but we knew we sure as hell couldn't afford it. We didn't know anything about managing those properties, about the area. We didn't know anything. but we knew it was a good deal. The numbers made sense. And so we just went out and we found people who had done that before. And we said, okay, if people have done it before, there has to be some kind of a recipe. There has to be some steps. And so we just went out and we followed those steps, and we ended up buying those 13, and then another package of 15 rolls and falls into our lap. And we're able to kind of refinance and shift some money around. And with appreciation in the market, we were able to purchase those. And then we've just kind of gradually bought and sold over the years to get to where we are today. And like I said, I had this goal, and I think it was more just about, well, the numbers sound good, 40 under 40 kind of thing. And so I said, I would like to buy 40 investment properties by the time I turn 40. And, it's funny enough that, I'm wishing now I would have said 400 by 40, because I feel like whatever goal I set, I probably would have done whatever it took to hit it. But 40 under 40 was a pretty cool thing. And it has really provided a lot of freedom and flexibility in my life to be able to go out and do the things that I want to do. I was able to quit my corporate 9 to 5 and then go start another business that is somewhat related to the real estate investments. And so I'm significantly more happy. I've got more time. I've got more freedom. I've got more flexibility. And, I just get to spend more time with my kids and my family.
Wow. So, just talk about like good timing to begin with, like you just had this idea of getting involved in purchasing a property, and you probably didn't even have goals at that point of what you really were looking for. You just wanted to get the one. And all of a sudden that huge amount just fell into your lap like that. You said 13, right?
13, yeah.
Yeah. That's incredible. And then, okay, so why don't you take me through that? Because I know, I think we spoke about this before. I personally have rented out my townhome that is now being rented. And for me, one is like a huge endeavor in itself, because there's so many things you don't think about that you have to have like a team of. So what did you do when you were first learning? I know you spoke with a bunch of investors and people that have done this, but did you have to get a team of people on your side to really make sure that you had these 13 units under control? Did you manage them yourself? Tell me a little bit about that thought process and the process in general, I guess.
Sure. So the consensus when talking to all of these different investors and trying to learn as much as we possibly could, we realized that, even with great people in our corner and with all of this knowledge and information and the want and desire that we had, we still didn't have the money for a down payment. We considered owner financing. So we went to the owners and said, hey, would you carry this note for us? And, we'll pay you over time. And the owners were really looking for a lump sum in cash. So that just wouldn't necessarily work for them. So what we had to do is we ended up, one of the investors that we talked to trying to get information, we decided to bring him on as a partner. And so it was going to be a 50-50 partnerships. He had banking relationships, and he had contractors, and he had home inspectors. He had all of these relationships, which was fantastic. We absolutely split the profit and the equity, but it also split and cut in half what we had to bring on the front side. But what we found pretty quickly was, even with the down payment being cut in half, we still didn't have it. And so you have to start getting a little bit creative. And when we thought this deal might die, in kind of that 11th hour, I came up with this idea, and I went to this investor and said, hey, you've got the money to where you could take on this entire project yourself. You see it's a good deal. You don't even need us. However, we'd still like to learn from you. What if you kept us as 50-50 partners? We'll bring what we can. You make up the difference in that down payment, and we will agree to manage the properties for free, because he was going to go out and hire a property manager. And so we said, okay, we'll manage the properties for free on a certain schedule. Once that delta is paid off, then we can either farm out the property management, we can keep doing it and actually collect the fee. But it allowed us to be 50-50 full share partners in the beginning, but not have to have the funds on the front side. So it took, like I said, a little bit of that creativity. But what it really did, what helped us out, because we didn't know anything. Going from not knowing anything to managing 13 properties, it's very much sink or swim. You get thrown into the fire pretty quickly. And so we just had to think. We didn't have time to to think we just had to react and we had to go through and find a way to figure it out. And so we did. So we learned so much from those first 13 that we are still using those lessons today as we're continuing to buy and manage more and more properties.
Wow, that's such an incredible story. And I know that you wrote a book, you're a best-selling author. And do you talk about some of the mistakes that you might have made in the beginning and basically kind of put that out there? Because I'm sure that you've learned from a lot of different trial and error, especially coming into it, not really knowing anything. It sounds like you were just kind of thrown to the wolves, but you wanted that process, and it was a learning process for you. So are those the kind of things that you touch on in your book, things like that?
Absolutely, it is. What I found was as I started talking about here's the journey that we went on, everybody was super interested in it. And I had all of these people wanting to get into real estate investing. And, like I said, a couple of years after we started investing, I was able to leave my corporate job and I moved over started selling real estate. So I was running my own business there. And I was working with a lot of newer investors. And I was finding that they were making the same mistakes that I was making on the front side. And I really had this passion for real estate investors and for helping new investors, especially. And I wanted them to learn from my mistakes. I knew they were still going to make mistakes, but hey, let me take a few off of your plate for you. And so I started writing it down. And I had written a book before that it ended up being an Amazon bestseller.
Wow.
And so I had this knowledge and I said, okay, well, I can put this in the form of a book. I know how to self-publish. I know how to sell on Amazon. This can be an additional revenue stream for me. But the more I got to thinking about it, I said, well, if I'm genuinely passionate about helping out these people, then why am I charging for this information? Why not just go out and give it to them? And so I decided to make it an ebook only. I bought an inexpensive domain and I put it out there and I give that domain to anybody that wants it. They can go download the book for free and they're good to go. I mean, they go to 10investormistakes.com. It's the number 10investormistakes.com. And anybody that wants it can go download the book for free. I'm pretty open and honest about, hey, here's some actual deals. Here's some actual numbers. Here's some of the mistakes that I made. Here's some of the preconceived notions that I had that weren't necessarily correct. Here's some things that I didn't even think were going to be issues, but turned out to be issues. Just to kind of help different investors figure out what's going to be the best possible path for them and avoid some of the pitfalls.
Yeah. And I feel like you're so passionate about what you do. I mean, I have started to read the book. And I mean, right in the beginning, you're completely transparent with the fact that I bought, all these investment properties and the beginning was an accident. And you're just completely honest right from like the first sentence of the book. And I just feel like that's the type of person you are. You really just want to help others. And you want to do that through trainings and things like that. So do you teach people different strategies, things like that? Like I believe you have courses.
I do have courses. Most
Okay.
of my courses are geared towards real estate agents themselves.
Okay.
Trying to help them on that front. I don't necessarily have a specific course or seminar for real estate investors.
Okay.
I've spoken at several conferences and things like that. But anybody that ever wants to reach out, I mean, like like you said, it's something that I'm passionate about. I love just talking shop on real estate investing. So, I mean, anybody's welcome to send me an email, luke@lukeandrews.us. I answer all my own emails. I don't have an assistant do that. And so it's just anybody that wants to talk, I am more than happy to schedule some time, whether it's Zoom or phone call, or, if you're local here in the Kentucky market, go sit down and have some coffee. We can talk real estate investing. I think it's awesome. And I'm passionate about getting more good people involved in it.
Yeah.
Because I think this country right now is at a loss for quality, affordable housing, especially for the younger generation that are trying to figure out where they're going to go. And maybe they haven't settled on a spot yet, so they're not ready to buy a house, but they need to rent something. I want to make sure that there are, great landlords that are out there who are willing, like I said, to provide that quality and affordable housing. And I'm willing to share anything I can to help spread that across the country.
That's amazing. Now, I know earlier you had mentioned basically like you love the fact that you have more freedom and things like that. So what do you do in your spare time? Do you have any hobbies? Do you spend it with friends and family? What kind of things bring you joy outside of, specifically investing or teaching others to do what you do?
Most of my time is spent with my family, and I have two boys that are 12 and 10, and so I am coaching everything imaginable. Everything that they do, I try to be as involved as I can be. Every now and then I'll take a season off because I think it's important for them to go through and to learn from others and not just hear my voice and be able to take direction from other people. But I love sports, love my kids, and they love sports. And so it's such a fun bonding time for us that we can just, you know, the rides to and from practice and to and from games, just the conversations that we're able to have. They're things that, I'll never get back. And, I look at when I was growing up, my dad was working like crazy all the time and worked in factories and warehouses. And so there wasn't always that time that we got to spend together like that. And so I'm trying to adapt that in my own life. And real estate has really made that possible because I have a lot of additional, just passive income that's coming in. And, the word passive income it can be somewhat deceiving. There's definitely some work that goes along with it. There is some stress that goes along with it. It's not just complete set it and forget it mailbox money, but it comes in, and I get paid a lot more than I should for the amount of work that I do. So I will say that. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, you just buy this property and all of a sudden they just send you checks each month and you never hear from anybody.
Yeah.
It's not the case, but you definitely don't work as hard as you should for the amount of money that is coming in. But that has allowed me the freedom and flexibility to do the things that I'm passionate about that I want to do.
I think that's a really interesting, what you just touched on, because, you're on social medias and things like that, and you see, oh, follow me for passive investing tips or passive, all kinds of ways to get passive, streams going. And they act like it's absolutely no work whatsoever put into it. There is a lot of work put into it. There's work put in the forefront to make it passive. If you don't put the work in, then you don't have that income coming in, because how is it just going to appear? So I think it's interesting how social media kind of makes it sound like it's the easiest thing in the world when there is a lot of strategy involved, I feel like, and planning. And there is also time that you need for it. And some people are like, oh, you work a 9 to 5 job and you can have like 5 different passive streams coming through. And I look at it and I'm like, well, you can, but is there enough time in the day to make them all successful and as passive as you'd want them? Because they just make it like it's so easy. So could you maybe go into that a little bit more? Like what kind of work would be done on the forefront for you per se with the investments that you do have to make sure that they are coming in comfortably streaming without having to do much work, on the latter part of it?
Sure. To go back to your first point is an amazing point that, passive isn't as passive as it's made out to be on Instagram. Like I said, I run a real estate team, and as I'm bringing new agents in, especially ones who have never been in the business before, one of the questions I ask is why real estate? And many of them say, oh, I really want the flexibility, to be able to set my own hours. So we kind of walk through that it's not as flexible as it's made to seem on, the Bravo TV shows, the $1 million listings there. I said, but also too, flexible hours don't mean optional hours. Just because you can kind of do them and fit them into your schedule doesn't mean that you can just choose not to do them. Okay. It's the old adage of don't be upset about the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do. And so I think that's super important for people to understand that flexible doesn't mean optional. And a lot of the work, like you talked about on the front side of real estate investing, when you're in the beginning and you don't necessarily have a great team set up, you spend a lot of time just bird dogging deals. And you have to look at 100 different properties. And it's usually maybe 100 online to be able to go see 10 in person, to be able to find 1 or 2 that are a good deal. And then usually if they're that great of a deal, you're competing with others. So you may or may not end up getting them. So the 100 that you just saw may end up leading to nothing. So that takes a significant amount of time. But even once you get those properties in place, unless you're Grant Cardone and you have, you're running this massive portfolio and you have this huge team, even if you've got a group of property managers that are out there doing this, you still need to have oversight on those property managers. You may trust them implicitly, but you need to have oversight on the work that they're doing. And most property managers, if anything is over a certain dollar amount, and it's usually somewhere in the $500 to $1,000 range, you're going to have to approve what it is that they're doing. And so having that opportunity, you have to spend the time saying, okay, well, we need to put a new furnace in, or, the furnace is on the fritz again. Should we go ahead and replace it? Or are we just going to try to band-aid it together for a little bit longer? And so you kind of have to run the numbers and figure out, how much longer can I get out of it? Is this going to make the tenant unhappy? What's the repair going to cost versus the replacement, and how soon do we need it? There's just all these calculations and things that you need to do. So the stress doesn't go away. And the work is just different. There's not quite as much, and it's not as hands-on, but you still have to make a lot of decisions. The nice part is that you can make those decisions from just about anywhere. So decisions I found are a lot easier to make when you're having a cocktail on the beach, right?
Yeah.
When you're sitting out by the pool, decisions don't seem as stressful. So setting up your business in a way, don't set your business up to not do anything. Set your business up so that you can do that business from anywhere. So that flexibility is really what you're aiming for, but you just have to remember that flexible doesn't mean optional.
Thank you. Yeah, really great point there. And thank you for understanding the stressor that I'm coming from. Cause like I said before I started renting out my home, I didn't think about all the things that could be involved with it. And of course, we're managing the property ourselves. And I guess a month ago, the air conditioner blew on the hottest week that we were having here in Pennsylvania. It was a heat wave, and they just had a newborn baby. And I was like, okay, I have to get emergency work done from my home warranty company, because that's what we're still using. We don't have a specific handyman in our pocket anymore. And it's just, you don't think about, yeah, I could do it anywhere. I was able to still, run my errands and everything while I was on the phone with them and make sure that my renters were comfortable. I was like, please, go find air conditioning, go to the mall, go somewhere that you can be safe while I get this fixed. And I was able to get an emergency work done, but I had to get a third party to do it and get approved for my home warranty. So it was so many phone calls and back and forth, and it was crazy. And I'm finally just getting paid back from my home warranty almost a month later. And you don't think about that when you are new to this, or especially if you don't have a good mentor, I guess. And we just kind of winged it.
It is. And it's things that you learn over time, because I can tell you, we were in a situation very similarly where our main water line, the one coming from the street into the house, into a duplex that we had, it burst. And of course, it was on Friday night of a holiday weekend. And so there is no water to the house at that point. It has to get shut off. And so we go through and our initial thought was, okay, we have to get an emergency crew out here. So the only ones working on the weekends, especially a holiday weekend, are the big names in town, the advertisers, the ones that tend to be more expensive. And they're going to charge you a surcharge because it's a weekend, and then another surcharge because it's a holiday. So we're looking at this bill, and they quote us and they say, okay, yeah, we can come out, we can fix it tomorrow, but it's going to be $12,500. We called our regular guy that would normally do it, and he was like, yeah, he said, I can do it for $4,500. He said, but I can't get to it until Wednesday. And so we're going back and forth. And of course, the initial thing is, well, our people can't be out of water for that long. But starting to run the math, when I factored in, I said, okay, I can put this tenant up in a hotel. I can pay for 3 meals a day for the next 6 days, and it'll cost me somewhere in the neighborhood of about $1,200. Well, to save $8,000 on a repair cost, that $1,200, it wasn't that bad. But that's not something that I would have thought of day one in real estate investing. I would have just been like, okay, I guess this is just what it is. I have to pay the 12.5 because that's my only option. If you can just kind of slow down the process a little bit and take just a moment to think, you can find that there potentially are some creative solutions out there. But that's what it takes, is just a little outside the box thinking.
Yeah, I would never have thought of that. That's genius. Like, thank you for sharing that with me because now I know for the future that I can do that as an option. That's wow, that's something I would never have known otherwise. So I'm glad you're here today. Why don't you take me through a little bit about what you see as a good deal or a good investment? Do you do flips? Do you do things like that? Or do you want it to be more turnkey? Tell me a little bit about your process there.
Sure. So I try to stay away from, what we could consider just like a true flip where it's you buy something that needs repair, you come in, you repair it, and then you turn around and sell it and hope to make money. I've done it once or twice. I don't love it. It's too risky. It's too labor intensive. There are too many decisions that have to be made. And the money hasn't always been great for me. I know a lot of people that do it and do it very well. I don't. It's just not my wheelhouse. It's not my skill set. I try to stay in my lane. So I'm looking for properties that I'm always looking to finance. So there are chapters in my book, and that some would say are somewhat contradictory because one of my chapters, the mistake is failure to consider financing the property. It's failure to consider taking out a loan. But the very next chapter is not paying cash, right? You know,
Yeah.
the mistake can be taking out the loan. The important thing to remember that I highlight there in the book is you have to look at the big picture, and you can't over leverage yourself. But I'm always looking for that leverage. I always take out a loan on my properties. I don't pay cash because I like to have the cash available to be able to go out and buy more. I can scale faster. But I do that. I take that leverage out in a very responsible way. But I factor in, the cost of capital, what it's going to cost to actually get the loan. I look at insurance, I look at taxes, and then I look at what a property manager is going to charge. And then I add in just a little additional buffer in there as well, what I think I can get for rent. And I want to see, what does that cash flow look like on an annual basis? So really just taking and saying, okay, well, if I know this is going to cash flow $150 a month, that's $1,800 per year. And if it costs me $18,000 to secure the property in the beginning between down payment and closing costs and whatever it took to rehab, I know that's a 10% return. So for me, 10%, I compare to, okay, what could I go out if I were getting in the market? And then I also factor in that my real estate is going to appreciate significantly over time. It is an asset that I'm holding on to, and I'm going to get some fairly significant tax breaks in it. So if that return on my money is, somewhere in the 8-9% range, I consider that a good solid deal for me. And I don't mind projects that need a little bit of work and a little bit of rehab if I can get them for the right deal on the front side.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. 8 or 9% return is better than you can get from any bank or anything else like that. So, I mean, it's definitely a great, percentage to be in the range of.
It's very
Yeah.
doable out in the
Yeah.
market these days.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
there are some, like the coastal markets and stuff, they're hoping to get 2 and 3%,
Hmm.
just kind of cash on cash, just because their home prices are so high in relation to their rent prices.
Sure.
They struggle to get that return, and then they're really just hoping to make the money on appreciation over time and to be able to hold on to that asset and looking for tax breaks. But in most of, what I'd consider like heartland kind of markets, middle of the country, and then even down kind of like into the Southeast, the numbers are very doable for, that 7, 8, 9, 10, even 12, 13% returns.
So do you invest outside of Kentucky area? Do you have investments all over the country in those better markets that you're talking about?
I don't,
Okay.
because Kentucky has been lucrative enough for me. I mean, I
Okay.
go into Indiana as well, but I sit right on the border. I mean,
Okay.
Indiana is 15 minutes from my house.
Oh, wow.
So I've got some properties over there as well,
Okay.
because their property values didn't appreciate quite as high as ours did, or quite as fast, but the rents were very similar. So my margins were quite a bit better over there. I mean, I've got a
Okay.
few right now that I purchased in October of last year that I'm getting about 14%,
Wow.
just
Wow, that's
cash on
awesome.
cash. Yeah, I mean, like
Perfect.
it's been a great opportunity, but I haven't really needed to go outside of my market. And so I haven't looked quite a bit, but I work with several investors who do invest all over the Southeast and the Midwest.
Yeah, I was just, wondering because I have spoken to some people that have done that, and it's interesting how they are able to manage it from, I mean, you can manage it from everywhere, but it's just interesting like if something were, God forbid, astronomically terrible to happen, like would you want to be at that property to see and really, survey it with your own eyes, not just taking your property manager's, word basically. So I was just wondering, but
You have to have a great team
yeah,
in place. I mean, just
yeah.
just like anything, just like the investment side, if you're investing your money, most of us, we can go out and we can read a book and we can watch CNBC and all those things and feel like we're an excellent investor. But at the end of the day, you probably need a professional on your side who's there advising you and helping you out. And just having that team in place where you all can work together. I never recommend anybody buying a property without at least flying in to look at it and to meet face to face. I have a lot of investors from California that I work with who
Hmm.
buy here in my market, and I help them buy from a real estate agent perspective. But I always want them to fly in to at least get a feel for. I drive them all over town. We spend the day. We drive through different neighborhoods. We look for target areas. I kind of show them around. I show them the industries, the businesses where most of their tenants might work. I want them to meet me and get a feel for me that we can work together and trust each other. I want to get a feel for them,
Yeah.
to make sure that they're trustworthy. And I also want them to meet property managers in town because I need to make sure that, you know, when stuff hits the fan down the road, because inevitably it will, that they have enough trust in us that we're doing the right things and we're taking care of them. And it's very difficult to do that from just a phone call, Zoom, or an email.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can attest to that. Okay, so you had answered what makes you want to make a purchase, right? What makes you want to sell your property? Like if do you have any that you held for a long time and then just all of a sudden you're like, I think it's time to get rid of it or, for one reason or another. What makes you want to, no longer own that property?
It could be a couple of different things.
Okay.
One, if just the price is right, and I feel like that it's nearing, the top of I don't think that it's ever going to be at the top of its appreciation, but if I feel like that it's going to start slowing down significantly,
Mm,
and maybe a particular property, it's like some just you don't necessarily mesh well with. It's like I've had a few duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, where it just feels like it's like there's one unit in there or two units that it's just like I can't get a good tenant in. I feel like this unit is cursed. And sometimes it's just like, you know what, it hasn't been as good of an investment as I thought it would. It's great for somebody, but doesn't necessarily fit into my vision. I'll start shopping it around to see if I can get a good deal for it. And sometimes too, it's a great opportunity presents itself and I need the cash for it, and I'm able to just kind of pull it out by selling a couple of these other properties, and it allows me to roll into something larger and something more exciting.
interesting. Wow. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I haven't had that experience yet because we just own the one. But I mean, it's great information to know down the line when we do start, really gathering more properties. Do you own any single family or do you mostly have multifamily properties?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
So I can tell you the package of 13 that I bought originally were all multifamily.
Oh,
So it was 13 doors, 13 units across three different properties. And then the package, I told you I bought a package of 15
mhm.
shortly after that. Those were all single families through there.
Oh, okay.
And then it's been a combination of all over time. I had one that was supposed to be a flip, but it didn't go as well as we hoped it would. So we kept it as a rental for a few
Oh, okay.
years. We were still able to do that. It didn't cash flow much, but it cash flowed enough to at least cover the note. And I would have taken a massive loss if we would have sold it as a flip. So
Mhm.
to continue to let it appreciate over time, to hold on to that asset and to be able to get some cash flow out of it was really beneficial and helpful.
There you go. I mean, sometimes, a bad situation can be just made great just by doing what you do. That's
Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
it's all about how you look for it. I mean, I
Yeah.
have a mentor, Sharon Srivatsa, who says your eyes only see and your ears only hear what you're looking for. And
Hmm.
so it's like if you're looking for problems, you're going to find problems. If you're looking for opportunities, you're going to find opportunities.
Wow.
Um, and so I've tried to stick with that. Now, it's not to say that I don't have bad days or days where I'm like, man, this house sucks. This is the worst buy I've ever made. As long as you're looking for the positive, I think you can find some positives for it. I can make a case for just about any investment, either for or against. It's just which one I choose to look at.
Yeah. And especially because you have all that background of purchasing at least 40 properties. I mean, you have that background, you know what works for you. And those are honestly great words to live by. I mean, yeah, if you dwell on the bad stuff, bad things are going to happen. You have to look on the positive side and better outcomes will come. So I like those words. I'm going to stick with those for, future endeavors. I like that. What would you tell someone that's coming to you, right, as a first time investor, really wants to know like the best information, maybe give like your elevator speech, right, of like what they can do or what the best way to get started would be?
Sure. I always tell people to get started somewhat small, and I like single families and duplexes to get them started. Coming in and buying for, triplexes, fourplexes, or even larger than that, because anything above a fourplex is considered commercial and it comes with its own
Yeah.
host of challenges and regulations and lending and insurance. I mean, it's a whole different animal. So I like people to kind of start with just that single family home or duplex. It's generally something that they know, that they can understand, and to get started small, but to go ahead and just get started, because real estate is something that historically does not depreciate. So it's only going to be more expensive next year. So you might as well just kind of start that process on the front side. But I tell people that they need to have a plan and a vision. It needs to be flexible enough that they could change and adjust that vision over time. Because, like I said, my vision certainly wasn't to buy 13 properties in the beginning, it was to buy one. And I had the flexibility to be able to shift it. But they need to have some sort of plan, some sort of goal, some sort of vision in place. I also tell people to not be afraid to take on a partner. I have so many that come and say, well, I don't want to take on a partner because that's going to eat up half my profits. I mean, if I'm only going to make $150 cash flow a month anyway, that drops it down to 75. And I was like, well, it also cuts your risk in half. It also gives you additional people to bounce ideas off of, to share the workload. It does all of these things. And I tell people too, if you're looking at partners, don't look for your twin, look for your mirror, right? You don't want a partner that is exactly like you. You want one. And so why I say mirror is you kind of want your opposite. You want to have similar goals and visions, but you want to have somebody that has different skill sets than you, so you all can complement each other. For instance, my business partner and we have very similar goals and visions. We know where we want to go. We see properties the same way, but I'm really strong on the analytical and the financial side. And then he's really, really good at dealing with contractors and getting those things done and kind of managing that aspect of it. So we complement each other really well. And both of those, like, I'm not good with managing the contractors. He's not good on the financial side. So we can complement each other with it. Those are the couple of things that I tell new investors on the front side, is just don't be afraid to take on a partner and to make sure that you have some sort of goal, vision, or plan. And then two, just take action. Just start seeing properties in person, start running numbers and take that first step, because you can sit back and you can read about it all day long. But until you actually take that step, it's just going to get harder and harder and harder, because properties are going to get more and more expensive.
Yeah, definitely. I really like how you were talking about finding your partner. To me, it's almost like a dating kind of scenario. It's
100%.
like, that's exactly what I looked for in my spouse. Like, we're the yin and yang to each other. Like,
Yeah.
we have similarities, but there's vast differences that we both have strong and, weaknesses, and the other fills that in. So
We need a Tinder
yeah.
for business partners or
Yeah.
something.
They have it for podcast guests. So why not? That's awesome. Well, I really had a great time speaking with you today. Is there any last words or information that you want to provide to our audience that's listening that, they could really get out of today?
Yeah, I mean, just don't be afraid to take that first step. taking the first step is just going out and just talking to a professional. And maybe that's a professional real estate agent. It could be a professional investment advisor. It could be a lender to see what you qualify for. Just taking those steps and starting to look at property, starting to look at different investments to figure out where your comfort level is and where that's going to mesh up. Because just because you're taking those steps doesn't mean that you're actually buying something.
Right.
It's a way to get started and to get comfortable, because that's a step you're going to have to take anyway. So you might as well get it out of the way now.
Yeah.
So that when the opportunity does present itself, you're ready and you don't have to pass it up. The only way that I was even remotely ready for 13 properties in the beginning is because we had been working on trying to find one. If we hadn't been to that step yet, if we hadn't gone out and looked at a few properties, if we hadn't been talking about it and creating a plan and a vision, there was no way in the world that we could have bought these 13, which was the catalyst to me being able to leave my corporate 9 to 5 and having the freedom and the flexibility and the passive income that I have today.
And that, I feel like, is definitely your financial freedom story. I mean, without those, you wouldn't be able to spend the time with your kids and doing sports with them. And you said you coach them, correct, as well?
I do.
So I have a question about that, because I've had a guest on that actually has like great sports analogies with investing. Do you instill into the kids that you coach like certain things that you do in your investing life to make sure that they are on the right track?
Oh, I'm sure I probably do. I mean, nothing's coming to mind. I mean, we try, because like I said, I coach, 10 and 12-year-olds, and I've been coaching them since they were, 6, 7, 8. And so we try to incorporate some life lessons into the field, and things are difficult and things are hard. But I don't know that I've done any of my investing analogies with the kids. Now, with my own personal kids,
Okay.
especially when we were managing the properties ourselves, I would take them with me to do the work. They can pull weeds, they can clean things up. I would take them with me to collect rent. I wanted them to see, how we make money, what the process looks like for when you actually do go buy a home, and maybe they're going to be renting someday, that they'll have to pay the rent. I want them to see that not everybody has the same type of house that we live in. And, it adds an additional appreciation, but it's just more about work ethic and passion is what I try to instill in my kids. As long as they're good people who work hard and they're passionate about something, I don't care. If they want to be in band, if they want to be in sports, if they want to be an artist, if they want to be in business, whatever it is that they want to do, as long as they work hard, they're good people and they're passionate about something, and those lessons can be translated across many, many different things. And that's really what we're trying to instill.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think that's absolutely amazing. And I think that's like a really positive, like, way to end this today, to be honest with you, because I think that, children are our future. And if they're not given those lessons to begin with, they're not going to grow up to be the people that we need in this world. So I appreciate you, the way you're teaching your children, the way you're coaching people. I think you're absolutely passionate about what you do, and you can really tell. Where can we find you again? Remind us where your book can be found so that we can start reading that, and give us a little of that info.
Sure. So 10investormistakes.com. It's the number 10, investormistakes.com. Or anybody can send me an email, luke@lukeandrews.us, or if you just go to lukeandrews.us, that's my website. It'll have links to the books. It'll have ways that you can contact me via email. And like I said, anybody that has questions or just wants to just talk real estate investing, send me an email. I'm happy to talk to anybody, because it is something that I'm super passionate about.
That's awesome. And I definitely, recommend speaking with him. He's super easy to talk with, and he definitely, cares about what you want to do. So please make sure you reach out to Luke Andrews. And then I just want to thank our sponsor, CamaPlan, and of course, Luke Andrews, for being on this podcast today. I had such a great time speaking with you. Please make sure to check out 10investormistakes.com, lukeandrews.us, and he's also available on social medias. All the links will be in the description below and the show notes. And if you have information or questions that you want to understand about self-directed IRAs, please go to CamaPlan CamaPlan.com, where you can request a consult with an expert, view our library of webinars and podcasts. And I just want to say thank you again for listening. Follow, share, and like our podcast, The Road to Financial Freedom, to continue on this journey on the path to finding success. Thanks again, Luke. I had such a great time with you today, and I hope everyone has a great and wonderful day.
Thanks so much. It was awesome.
Thanks. Bye-bye.